and John Mearsheimer, how he shuts him up and pretty much call him a stupid person as he is. Take a listen at this particular conversation.
Means Hamas is effectively going to be in control of Gaza, which is apparently not acceptable to either Israel or the United States. So the question is, how does this end? And it's very hard to say.
Well, also, you have a leader of the Palestinian Authority who's in his 80s, and there's a lot of concern that if Hamas was not to have any role in leading Gaza after this, in any form of government, then who actually would? Would it be the Palestinian Authority, who, to many people's eyes, are too damaged to do that? And if it's not the Palestinian Authority or Hamas, then who the hell is it?
I don't know. It's certainly not the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority was damaged goods before October 7th, and they're in even worse shape today. It's hard to imagine them coming into Gaza and running the place. The Palestinian Authority is seen as being complicitous with the Israelis. Many Palestinians, maybe most Palestinians, think that the Palestinian Authority does Israel's dirty work in the West Bank. And the last thing they need is for the PA to come into Gaza and do Israel's dirty work there. So it's not going to be the PA. It is possible that some sort of new organization or institution will be created, but it's hard to see what that is at this point in time. And furthermore, even if you replace Hamas, whoever comes in to replace Hamas is going to have deeply hostile relations with Israel, because Israel is interested not only in cleansing Gaza, but Israel is deeply interested in not giving the Palestinians a state of their own. And the end result of that is the Palestinians are going to continue to resist. You know, we had a first intifada and we had a second intifada before we had October 7th. So if you don't have some sort of meaningful peace agreement where the Palestinians get some sense of sovereignty over a fixed piece of land, there's no chance that this is going to go away. You're going to have apartheid for as far as the eye can see. And apartheid, from my point of view, is a prescription for disaster for Israel, for the Palestinians, and for the United States.
Okay, so all this time, Piers Morgan was blaming Hamas, and the only question he asked, he was asking his guests, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Right now, what we see from him is that absolute silence. So when John Mearsheimer is giving him the answer, the reality of it, he is not talking whatsoever, because according to Piers Morgan, Hamas should not rule over Gaza. So what is the solution? What we can see going forward happening? The answer to that question from John Mearsheimer to Piers Morgan is that there is no solution for the Israeli Zionist relationship, their oppression, the genocide that they are committing, unless we have a resistance. So in other words, Piers Morgan's question, who will replace Hamas, or how can we get rid of Hamas, and what will happen after Hamas? The answer is whoever comes in power after Hamas, even if after Hamas is gone, will be dealing with Israel the way Hamas is doing exactly at the moment. Therefore, the question, his questioning should stop. There, what we can do to stop Hamas? No, you can do nothing to stop the people of Palestine. Maybe you can stop Hamas, but the people of Palestine, they're not going to stop resisting. So Piers Morgan, he believes that the only solution for the people of Gaza and the people of Palestine is not to a state, is not giving them sovereignty. It is getting rid of Hamas. So Piers Morgan, here you have an answer. Whoever comes in power will hate Israel because of what Israel is doing. They deserve it. They deserve it, especially now that they have committed this genocide, especially now that people have seen what they're capable of, how cruel they are. Of course, anybody in Palestine, whoever ruled Palestine or Gaza, will see Israel in that way.
Yeah, it does seem to be a very concerning situation, because I've always felt from the start, I felt several things. One, I felt that Israel had a fundamental duty to its people to respond with force after October the 7th. They had to, particularly given that Hamas went on record, on camera, within a week saying we're going to keep doing this as many times as we can get away with it.
No, there is no absolute record of that. Instead, what we have is a record from the Israeli Zionist governments saying that we're going to cut them off from fuel, food, energy. They have banned United Nations Organization, UNRWA. They are banning everything. They're suffocating the people of Gaza. Piers Morgan, his tape is the same. Well, Hamas said repeatedly over and over again, they're going to destroy Israel, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. No, these are all evidence, not evidence-based whatsoever. These are all his statements coming from his own head.
If you're Israel, you had to do something big. The problem was what was proportionate and what would not end up, if they weren't careful about their response, being a situation that would inflame rather than douse down the threat. And it's very hard to see right now, despite all the protestations from Benjamin Netanyahu, that he's won and everything else. When you see the scenes going on with these hostages being released with so many Hamas terrorists around, so many people supporting them, and you get the intelligence reports from the Americans saying that they believe they've all been replaced anyway by people with the same ideology, the very fear that I've had, which is that you can kill a group of terrorists as you identify them, but if you don't kill the ideology and in fact you fuel it, you could end up with a worse scenario going forward than you had before.
I agree completely. I mean, the fact is that there is no purely military solution to this problem. The Israelis have this belief that they can use the big stick, they can use military force, what they sometimes call the iron wall, to beat the Palestinians into submission. They've been trying this formula for decades. It does not work. The only way you're going to resolve this conflict is to come up with a political solution. And this is the principal reason that so many American presidents have pushed hard for a two-state solution. A two-state solution is a political solution, and it gives the Palestinians a sovereign state of their own. And
another thing that I'm noticing here is that Piers Morgan is tight-lipped. When John Mearsheimer is saying that they are using this iron wall for many, many years, for the past decades, Piers Morgan is not saying anything in his defense because he believes everything is started on October 7th. Remember, when John Mearsheimer is giving him a lecture, he's completely shut. He's completely shut. He doesn't have any rebuttal because he knows that he's going to mess up with this guy. This guy is going to come up with more evidence, more knowledgeable arguments and proofs, and he will look himself, Piers Morgan, he will look even more pathetic. So no, everything according to John Mearsheimer did not start on October 7th, as Piers Morgan like to believe.
People recognize, at least outside of Israel, that that is the only way you're ever going to shut this conflict down.
But the problem with the two-state solution is that Netanyahu has shown zero interest, it seems to me, for more than 20 years in having a two-state solution. In fact, if you look at the history since the start of the new century, Netanyahu was very, very keen for billions of dollars to be funneled to Hamas from 2005 onwards, and didn't seem to have any idea what they were then spending that money on. And then we find out on October the 7th that actually they spent it on a very sophisticated tunnel system, which allowed them to then run and hide amongst civilians, making the response from Israel almost impossible in the way that they were conducting it without massive civilian loss. So it seemed to me that at every stage of this, Netanyahu's desire for a two-state solution has been almost non-existent, and yet he's still prime minister. So if the person in charge of Israel at the moment has no interest in a two-state solution, then although most people outside think it's the only way this ever eventually gets resolved, how does it get resolved?
Well, it's important to emphasize, Piers, that Netanyahu is hardly the only Israeli leader who's opposed to a two-state solution. There's a rich history of opposition to two states in the Israeli national security establishment. So Netanyahu's not an anomaly here. You also want to ask yourself the question, given what's happened since October 7th in Gaza and even what's going on in the West Bank, can you really imagine a workable two-state solution? I thought a two-state solution was dead before October 7th, but it's deader than dead at this point in time, just given the events since October 7th. So I don't see that as a viable alternative. You then raised the question, what is the solution here? And I don't see any solution. I think what you're going to get is pretty much a continuation of the situation that existed before October 7th, which is where Greater Israel is effectively an apartheid state, and where the Palestinians who live in the West Bank and in Gaza are constantly looking for opportunities to rise up against the Israelis and create a first intifada, second intifada, or another October 7th. This is a disastrous situation for Israel. And of course, it's a disastrous situation for the Palestinians as well.
Donald Trump, obviously very pro.
Okay, I was expecting Piers Morgan to come up with this response to what John Mearsheimer just said, and that is that, oh, we can get rid of Hamas, everything will be over. This is the solution. Two-state is not a solution, but then we can also get rid of Hamas and to bring an end all of this conflict. He's not saying that because he knows deep down inside of him that this is not possible. In the beginning, when he started his nonsense show, he was always saying, oh, once Hamas is over, once we get rid of them, there will be peace in Palestine. He's not saying that anymore because this doofus, he knows that that is now not an option whatsoever.